From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
We're active in about 15 campuses, and we're growing very, very quickly. And keep in mind, this is not just a flash in the pan movement. We're going to become an institution to give them the power and the confidence to stand up and let their voice be heard. I started this organization when I was 18 years old. I decided not to go to college. I didn't get in my dream school, which was the United States Military Academy at West Point. I have this idea to galvanize and motivate the future youth of this country around a core set of ideas, not just political parties or politicians. And the ideas are really America's the greatest country in the history of the world. The Constitution is the greatest political document ever written, and free enterprise is the most assured way to lift people out of poverty and create prosperity for all. Those are the three big ideas. And I think that's something that can win. We as Christians are called to go into the public arena to correct error with truth. So I go to college campuses and there's a lot of error. We're all sinners. We all live in error. I'm far more interested in what God wants of me than what I want from God.
I have to say this without getting emotional, but I'm very proud of my husband. And I know many of you are too. You have worked so hard. And I know a lot of you have seen, obviously, his videos on TikTok and all the stuff he does on campus, but no one gets to see him from my angle except for myself and our children. And the sacrifices that he made this year, he's amazing. I'm very blessed.
And I would not have been able to do any of it without Erica. And that's the real truth. I'll tell you what. You are here as a grassroots response to the top-down revolution happening in this country. I want our Turning Point USA students to receive a round of applause. These are the freedom fighters of America.
The media said that Turning Point could never run a ground game. They weren't experienced. They didn't know Charlie, right?
This is the greatest generational realignment since Woodstock. This generation is the most conservative generation that we have seen in well over 50 years, and the numbers show it. What young people especially are screaming at is they say, give me a structure that I can live my life by. And especially with young men, more challenging of them, more saying, you know what, honestly, I'm not gonna talk down to you. Stop being a boy and become a man. You wanna learn what that means? Come to church and I'll tell you what it means to become a man. Because we have the greatest story ever told. What can I do to save the country? You answer that question every single day because you are doing the work to save this beautiful republic. You are doing something that is bigger than you.
If everything completely goes away, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. Most important thing is my faith in my life.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Next Gen Report. Obviously, I want to start off by saying this episode of the show is dedicated to Charlie Kirk. I've seen a lot of folks on the right, a lot of hosts, a lot of commentators, podcasters, the works, all taking time to tell their personal stories about how good of a friend Charlie was to them, or how much they love Charlie Kirk, and you know, you've seen it all 1,000 times already. I don't have any of those stories. I never had the privilege of meeting Charlie Kirk. I'm just one of the thousands, hundreds of thousands of Gen Z, members of Gen Z, that were inspired by Charlie Kirk. Charlie was a guy who looked at my generation, really, and said, obviously, you guys want something better than what has been passed down to you from the last 2 or 3 generations. And I think I can give that to you. I think I can motivate you to go out and get that for yourselves. And that's what he dedicated himself to. He dedicated himself to sharing a conservative message with young people, sharing the gospel with young people, going out and changing hearts and minds in a way that benefited the United States of America and my generation and me personally. I mean, how many people, my age or younger, or even older, grew up watching Charlie Kirk videos, even if it was just passively, even if you're not a super political person, you just kind of saw Charlie Kirk owning the libs and thought it was funny. Even if you just scrolled past it and laughed at it a little bit, chances are you were able to glean something. One of my biggest influences is Charlie Kirk for that reason. He made being political as a younger person in this day and age attainable to a lot of people, including myself. And it's hard to measure in the moment the impact of that. But I think we've started to see it over the last several days. If you somehow missed it, Charlie was assassinated on Wednesday. And it was a political assassination. We know that. We'll dig into that as we go through this episode. But even by his death, he's having an unbelievable effect on both the conservative movement and young people. The folks my age who maybe weren't super political, but liked Charlie's content, now they're waking up. If you thought he was influential before, if you thought he got young people's attention before, if you think he got his message to young people before, what we've seen in the aftermath of his murder is drastically more significant. And that's not to demean the work that he did when he was with us. I think rather than that, it actually speaks to how effective his work was, because you only see this shift when someone truly mattered. And I think Charlie Kirk truly mattered. We're going to be digging into Kirk's life and legacy and his assassination and the after effects of it this evening on the Next Gen Report. So stay tuned. We've got a lot more coming up. Thank you, Turning Point USA, for that tribute to Charlie Kirk. We'll be back in just a second after this ad break to dig into his legacy. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. Alrighty, welcome back to the Next Gen Report. I am Ethan Buchanan. Thank you for joining me. This episode is, of course, dedicated to the late, great Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated on Wednesday. I don't want to dwell on the death of Charlie Kirk. It was horrific. I saw it. Most people in this country did. The video was everywhere. It was unavoidable. It was violent. It was shocking. I consider myself to have a pretty strong stomach. I, like most people my age, grew up on the internet. I've spent a lot of time on the internet. I'm 22 years old. About half of my life, I've had pretty much open access to the internet. My parents did their best, but I was sneakier than they were. So, you know, to put it mildly, seeing Charlie's murder was not the first time I had seen someone die online. But it hit me quite a bit harder than any other death I'd ever seen. I was at work when it happened. I almost threw up at my desk. I don't want to dwell on it. If you don't know what happened, Charlie Kirk was speaking at one of his college Ask Me Anything, Prove Me Wrong events. This is what he was known for. This is where many folks, including myself, first discovered Charlie Kirk. Doing these events, sitting down at a college campus with an open mic and saying, hey, let's discuss these hot button issues. Let's even disagree, but let's have a conversation like humans about these hot button issues. And a sniper assassinated him in the middle of that event. Actually, towards the beginning. It was very shocking. It was horrifying. I've seen the video multiple times. You probably have too if you're on X. I don't encourage you to look for it. Normally with a video like this, I would say it's important to go watch it. It's important to know what is happening. It's important to know what is being done to people by the left. The best case of this is Irina Zarutska, where I played as much of that video on the YouTube as I could play without YouTube actually flagging it. And I think they did anyway, because it hasn't gotten a lot of traction, but that's fine. I say it's important to watch a video like that because it's important to know what's at stake. This isn't hypotheticals. This is real life. We're dealing with real dangers, real violent people who are using real violence against real other people. But I'm not going to play the video of Charlie Kirk's murder. It hits me too hard. It hits most Americans too hard, and I think it's gotten enough airtime already. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to play any videos from that event. Instead, in this segment, I'm going to talk about what Charlie Kirk spent his last few days alive talking about, particularly with Irina Zarutska. I mentioned her just a minute ago. Charlie Kirk talked about her just as much as I have in the last few days. And he specifically called out the left on this. So first I'm going to play you this clip of Whoopi Goldberg telling you to stop politicizing this. And then I'm going to play you a clip of Charlie Kirk talking about why it is important to politicize this. So first, here's Whoopi Goldberg.
Look, a young woman is dead. Let's take that into consideration. And yes, a man who should have been behind bars was loose and out.
Well, he should have been.
Listen,
Yeah.
He was a schizophrenic man. His mother begged them to take him and put him away. So stop politicizing this. This is not political. This has to do with how we take care of our sick Americans when they are in need.
All right. That clip courtesy of the Media Research Center. So, this is political. Stop politicizing this. No, I won't. Whoopi Goldberg is correct to point out that the killer of Irina Zarutska, his mother did ask the court to keep him in prison because she knew that he was a threat to himself and others. So why didn't they? That's a policy question. Politics. It is important to understand who's making these poor decisions and how they got into office. That's politics. Charlie Kirk, in his final days, correctly pointed out that if we don't address these issues, it will happen again. If we want things to change, it's 100% necessary to politicize the senseless murder of Irina Zarutska because it was politics that allowed a savage monster with 14 priors to be free on the streets to kill her. He's right. You may not like it, but it's true. All right? It is. Here he is explaining this on his show, on his podcast. Take a listen.
On August 22nd, Irina Zarutska was stabbed to death on the rail system in Charlotte, North Carolina, by a savage career criminal.
Her life story, I think, will be told both in the United States and Ukraine for years to come. What do you think the importance of this story is most fundamentally?
This was one of the coldest, most senseless murders I've ever seen. She had no interaction with this guy whatsoever. She was sitting minding her own business, and he just takes out a knife and just decides to stab her. I do say this with some form of just heaviness. I don't like politicizing situations like this, but it just necessitates it because there are so many dynamics at play here. Based on the information evidence we have, the attacker did say, "I got that white girl." The attacker racialized it in his own telling of this situation. And we all know this. Any honest observer of your program knows this, including Van Jones even knows this deep down, which is that, of course, if a random white person on a subway took out a knife and stabbed a black girl senselessly to death, there would be massive media coverage. There would be policy changes. There would be people having to apologize for this. We saw this in George Floyd, and yet, for whatever reason, this situation has not garnered even a fraction of that kind of outrage or backlash.
Now, this all hits a whole lot different knowing that Charlie Kirk, just a few days after saying all of this, was himself the victim of a political murder. It's shocking. It's difficult to cope with because in hindsight, hearing a lot of what Charlie Kirk said throughout his career, even recently, it's almost prophetic. It is. A lot of the things he said right there apply to his own murder. It's something to think about. It's something to process. But again, I don't want to dwell too much on his death. I want to take a look at what he said there in the context that he said it. He's right. The left, for all intents and purposes, has ignored the death of Irina Zarutska as best as they can. We forced them to bring it up by making it a national issue, but they would have ignored it if they could. He addressed that. Why is that? Why is it that George Floyd, a career criminal, can overdose on drugs and a man is now spending the rest of his life in prison for that? And then we had national outrage, we had riots, we heard businesses burned to the ground. How do we get to that point? But a Ukrainian refugee who we're supposed to all care about, right? That's the line from the left. They won't shut up about Ukraine. Except when a Ukrainian refugee is murdered in the United States of America by a black man who is let out of prison thanks to what appears to be soft on crime policies. That's worth talking about. That is politics. You can say, oh, we don't want to politicize this. Great. Do you have a better idea of how to stop this? We have to change the policy somewhere. We have to change the political discourse somewhere. That's the only way to stop these murders from happening. The left doesn't want to talk about that. The left wants you to ignore obviously political issues when they don't help the left. The same is true of Charlie's murder, as it was of Irina Zarutska's. All right, we got a lot more coming up. Charlie Kirk is a legend, and it will take a lot more than one show to really do him justice. But one episode is all I have right now, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, so I want to devote this, the longest segment of tonight's show, to Charlie's message. And that's something that I don't want to see lost in the aftermath. There's a lot that we can glean from Charlie's murder, from Charlie's death. I am terrified that we will wind up losing that or prioritizing that over what Charlie lived for. I think that's more important. The aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death is very important. Don't get me wrong. The shift, the political shift, the social shift that we have seen following the murder of Charlie Kirk, the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk, may be, no pun intended, the greatest turning point in modern American history. But I don't want us to lose the forest for the trees or what have you. I don't want us to forget what Charlie Kirk lived for. And Charlie Kirk had a very important political and faith message that inspired literally a generation, an entire generation, from people, 5 or 6 years older than me to people 5 or 6 years younger than me. And for a point of reference, I'm 22 years old. And I've been involved in politics and media since I was maybe 14-ish, because largely of Charlie Kirk. And I'm not the only one. There are others. So what was he actually fighting for? Why was Charlie Kirk killed? it was because he was a powerful warrior and a powerful mouthpiece for both the conservative right and the Christian faith. So I want to talk first about the intersection of those two things. Christendom and conservative politics meet right where Charlie Kirk was. And his political message was, we need to have a society that incentivizes and makes it possible for people to have large families, raise them in the Christian tradition, and keep them safe and provided for. That, I think, was the essence of Charlie Kirk's political message. And his faith message was, hey, go to church, seek Christ, have a large family, because that's what the Bible calls you to do. This clip of Charlie with Laura Ingraham, this is on September 8th, so just a few days before he died. Here he is kind of talking about all that. I think this is a very important clip. Take a listen.
What is going on with women and not wanting to prioritize family?
Yeah, this is a pattern that I've seen time and time on these college campuses where young men are ordering their life correctly. They want to first and foremost have children, get married, and then have a nice job or to be able to travel. If you look deeper into this data, it's completely consistent with other data we've seen the last couple of years. Young women, they don't value having children. And this is one of the reasons why we are seeing a fertility collapse in the West. We're seeing less and less young people get married. We're seeing more and more people go into their 30s to have children. Now, mind you, this is starting to change the last 18 months especially. We are seeing a little bit of a turning of the corner, if you will, as the country is starting to get more into traditionalism and young people are starting to go back to church. But if you play out the liberal worldview, the Kamala Harris worldview, to its furthest possible logical point, you have a country with literally no future. When you play out the logical endpoint of President Trump's agenda of where young men voted for him, you have one of lots of children, increasing communities, and you also don't have a need then for mass immigration. And this all kind of ties together. Trump voters, young men, they want family, children, and legacy. Young women who voted for Kamala Harris, they want careerism, consumerism, and loneliness. That is a dramatic divide that is going to play out in our politics for the years to come.
Now, I can tell you with all honesty, I am one of the young men that heard Charlie Kirk throughout my kind of high school years preach that message, and it resonated with me. I remember when I was as young as, 14 or 15, I knew that I wanted to be married by 20 and have a child by 2021. Or by the time I was 21. Now, I just got married this year. I'm 22. So I'm close, but I kind of miss it. I'm sorry, Charlie. I did my best. But this is a biblical message, and it is a good message. I think what God says in Genesis when he looks down at Adam and says it is not good for man to be alone, that's true. It's not good for men to be alone, and it's not good for women to be alone either. Men and women, if you believe the biblical narrative, which I do, men and women were both created by God with a specific purpose, and they were created for each other. They need each other. They do. That was a big part of Charlie Kirk's message. It resonated deeply with me. That's one of the reasons that I think I got married at 22 years old in 2025. I keep getting the years and how old I was mixed up. But I got married in 2025 at the age of 22. And Charlie Kirk is one of the reasons for that. Because I heard him constantly say, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what Scripture calls you to do. And it's true. Genesis 1 verses 20-28. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. That was a big part of Charlie's message. And I think that's important. That's more of his faith-based message. His political message was, I think, quite a bit simpler. His political message was, one, let's create a society that facilitates and encourages that. But more importantly, I think the ultimate kind of Charlie Kirkism was, let's create a society where people have a conversation. Here he is at one of these college events that he became so well known for and eventually gave his life at, talking about why he was actually there. And he says in this video, I'm here to have conversations with people I disagree with, because when we can't get to a point where we have these difficult conversations with people we disagree with, that's when violence happens. This clip resonates even more now that he's been murdered for having these conversations. Take a listen.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assaults, the left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
That to me is probably one of, if not, no, I'll say one of. The most important part of Charlie Kirk's legacy is his message on faith. But in a close second or third, easily in the top 5, is the fact that Charlie Kirk understood the importance of political discourse. And he also demonstrated the fact that it's actually easier to have than you might think. You don't have to agree with the opposition. You don't even have to like the opposition. But you do need to have conversations with them. You do. I think just personally, I've tried and failed to emulate that. I'm the type of person, and this is something I'm working on, where I get very upset with someone when I think I've made a good point, and I can tell that they're intentionally refusing to acknowledge it or even think about it. I'm working on it. This is something that Charlie Kirk was really an inspiration to me on, was he confronted people, but he was not confrontational. I confront people all the time, and I'm confrontational about it. Charlie Kirk is a better man than I. But he understood the fact that, listen, when we can't disagree and say, hey, listen, I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, but we can have a conversation, we see each other as people, and we can go to the ballot box, and may the best man win. Kirk understood that, and that message actually resonates with people. It resonated with my generation in droves. I think that's probably what I'll talk about in the next segment, so stay tuned for that. I want to talk about the response to Charlie Kirk's death, both on the left, which has been egregious, and on the right, which has been very inspiring. Like I said, Charlie Kirk's death has been a turning point, no pun intended, for the entire United States of America, and largely because of how people are choosing to respond to it and what people are choosing to take away from it. So stay tuned for that. We've got a quick ad break coming up, and we will be right back to dig into that. Again, this entire episode of the show is dedicated to Charlie Kirk, who was killed on Wednesday in a horrific political assassination. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back. We got a lot more to cover in this last segment. Alrighty. Welcome back. The Next Gen Report @ Ethan Buchanan on X. Look me up on YouTube as well. Ethan Buchanan or The Next Gen Report. You'll have to dig either way because it's a new channel, but you'll find me. Shoot me an email. thenextgenreport@gmail.com. Let me know your thoughts on anything we ever talk about. I'd love to hear from you, my listeners. I want to talk about the left's reaction to Charlie Kirk's death versus the right's reaction to Charlie Kirk's death, because it is important. In case you somehow missed it, Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, was killed on Wednesday, assassinated at one of his iconic Prove Me Wrong events. Ask Me Anything events. I don't remember what the label he put on it was, but one of his events where he goes to college campuses and he just debates with people he disagrees with. Now, Charlie Kirk was by every definition a kind of moderate conservative. He was not a radical. He was not overly controversial. He said things like, men are men, women are women, Christ is Lord, we should have a secure border. And for that, he was killed. I want to talk a little bit about the left's reaction first, because it has been despicable. We've heard all the rhetoric from the left about basically everyone, right? Anyone, starting with Trump all the way down to you, the voter. If you are to basically the right of Kamala Harris, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi, you're just a racist, xenophobic, horrible person who doesn't deserve to live. That language extended, of course, even to Charlie Kirk, who, again, I cannot say this enough. Charlie Kirk was not a radical right-winger by any stretch of the imagination. Charlie Kirk is pretty much what all of conservatism was in the 80s. He's just a moderate conservative. He's not there going out and saying, hey, we need to have a dictator. We need Trump to crack down and force Christianity on everyone, although he was open about his faith and openly encouraged other people to seek Christ. But he wasn't an extremist, and attempts to paint him as an extremist are frankly retarded. I don't know if I can say that on the radio, but I did. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. But that's how I feel. Now, the left is, of course, because they believe that Charlie Kirk was a fascist, racist, homophobic, xenophobic Nazi, have openly celebrated his death. And I mean openly. If you've been on the internet at all, anywhere on the internet, but especially on places like X, you've seen it. You've seen people yourself probably cheering for Charlie Kirk's murder, which is baffling to me because it was horrific to watch. And I did watch it. Here is this one leftist outside of a Charlie Kirk vigil, openly cheering for Charlie Kirk's assassination by singing, "We Got Charlie in the Neck." If you didn't know, Charlie Kirk was shot through the neck by an assassin sniper at the Utah Valley University. Here is this guy singing this song and cheering that on.
We got Charlie in the neck. We got Charlie in the neck. Who's up next? We got Charlie in the neck. In the neck.
And he goes on to sing that song again another 3 or 4 times. Who's up next? DHS. They didn't just want this for Charlie. They didn't just want Charlie Kirk murdered. DHS, Department of Homeland Security. That means anyone who's an ICE agent, federal law enforcement. They want the same thing to happen to them. And of course, this gets back to the fact that, again, we've had rhetoric that was leaning to this. Morgan J. Freeman, he, of course, tweeted out right after Charlie Kirk got murdered, America must come together around in condemning. I don't think that makes sense. The cruel and violent assassination of Charlie Kirk. Somebody correctly pointed out, you called for this. This is what you wanted. I dream of an America with no Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jen Jordan, a bunch of just Republican folks, including even Trump. These are both influencers and commentators and elected officials. And there's Charlie Kirk's name right there. And then he has the audacity to say we must come together in condemning the cruel and violent assassination. I thought this was your dream, guy. What do you mean? What's wrong? And these aren't outliers, by the way. Where is it? There it is. These are various screenshots from the platform Blue Sky. All of them either praising the assassination of Charlie Kirk or talking about who they want killed next. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, are you kidding me? Joe Rogan is by no means even a conservative. And still, because he's maybe to the right of Kamala Harris, they want him dead. J.K. Rowling, that's a big one. Especially because we know that Charlie Kirk was killed largely because of, I think, his views on transgenderism. His shooter, we now know, was living with a transgender boyfriend. It was a boyfriend that thought it was a girlfriend. So we can blame this on transgender ideology, which is inherently violent. And of course, there was transgender messaging engraved on the shell casings of one of the bullets that he did not fire. And, I mean, you can see it here. These are all calling for the assassination of other political figures. And the left will still try to do whataboutism, which is wild to me. Here's Donald Trump calling this out, by the way. Because the line from the left has been either, I'm so glad Charlie Kirk is dead, or both sides need to turn down the rhetoric. No, the left needs to turn down the rhetoric. The left. We didn't do this. You did this. You are the radicals. We are normal. We have been normal the entire time. And you're trying to paint normal as radical and killing us because of it. We're sick of it. Here's Donald Trump calling that out. He says, the left is radical. The right is only radical because they don't want to be murdered. Here he is saying this.
The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want...
So he calls out the left for being politically savvy and then goes on to say they're not that politically savvy, which is right. But there he is calling that out, saying, no, we're not radical. We want to be safe. We want to be free. That's what the right wants. That is the message of the right. We want to be free to go to do things like go to church, ride on public transit, go shopping, carry our firearms and know that I'm probably going to be safe. I probably don't need this firearm. But if I need it, I have it. And I'll be protected. And I can leave this store and I can go to church and I can worship my God. And then I can go home with my family. And I can enjoy the fact that I live in a country where I'm free to worship my God, spend time with my family, and make sure they have a good life and a good future and then pass down a country to them. That's what the right wants. And that's radical. The left wants to gender mutilate your children. The left wants to force your children to learn about gay sex. The left wants you to open your borders and let everyone into your country. And if you say, hey, no, I think that's wrong, and I want to have a conversation about why you support it and I don't on this college campus, they will shoot you in the neck for it. That's what happened to Charlie Kirk. I think that's all I've got time for this week. I've got a lot more to say, so tune back into the Wednesday podcast, the next -gen report, wherever you get your podcasts, @ Ethan Buchanan on X. This situation will continue to develop. We've got a lot more to talk about here. I don't have enough time to say everything I want to. So follow me on X, tune back into the podcast on Wednesday or back here Sunday at 7 on AM 950 KPRC. Thank you very much for listening to the Next Gen Report.